Hello and welcome to the Fiber for the People Dye Studio. My name is Taylor Earl and today is a Tips from the Dye Studio video installment. Now I do typically shoot these where you can see all of my face, but because this is a pretty quick demonstration video, I'm doing this binging with Babish style. So we're gonna see how this goes. But today what I'm talking about is how to get dye stains off of the inside of your stainless steel dye pans or pots. Now, if you're dyeing yarn, you need to be using stainless steel. And if you're using stainless steel, that doesn't necessarily mean that the acid dye that you're using to dye your yarn is not going to stain your pan. It's actually quite the other way around. If you're using hot water and you're using oil-rich yarn, all of those things together with acid dye is a recipe for pans being stained. That doesn't mean they're going to be stained permanently, but this alone with hot water is going to mean you're going to be working a lot harder to get those dye stains off your pans. And up until relatively recently, that's what I was doing on the ground with your pans and some hot soapy water, scrubbing these stains away. And it's really just a lot of hard work and takes a lot of time. And I'm happy to have a solution to save time on that. Now there are a couple different products you can use to get stains off. One is alcohol. Isopropyl alcohol is really great at removing stains from the sides of your pans, but a couple reasons why I'm not demonstrating with that today is because number one, it's hard to come by right now. It's not something we can really buy in bulk to have in our dye studios because it needs to be used by medical professionals and people in those fields, and also too because people are purchasing it to make at-home hand sanitizer, and that's really important. That's a great application for that right now. Kind of seems to be maybe irresponsible to be using it for something like this. But I do have another solution, and it's one that I really, really love. OxiClean Laundry Stain Remover. Now, I am not sponsored by OxiClean. That would be ridiculous if I were. But it's just that I really love this stuff, and it's the stuff that works. So this is what I'm going to be using today to get the pesky acid dye stains off of the insides of my pans. The reason why it's important to do this, and a lot of times you don't realize how important it is to do this in the beginning until you make the mistake of not doing it and find that the yarn you just added to the pan with the hot water, fresh, undyed yarn, is actually pulling out the color from the pan, leaving you with, in most of the cases, a nice bright pink stain on your yarn. And if you're dyeing a color that has no pink in the recipe, that can be a problem and a huge waste of number one, time and freshly undyed yarn that you were intending to use for a regular repeatable colorway. So it's important to take care of that. So make sure that if you do have a heavy layer of residual dye on your pan, or any residual dye on your pan at all, rinse it off into a container where you can save that dyed water essentially, or that dye stock that's created from that residual dye. Don't send it down the drain if you can avoid it. Try to find a way to repurpose that. So these pans, I've done that already. They are dry currently, and I'm going to show you what I mean by the pesky dye stains. It may be kind of hard to see, but if you look inside the pan, especially in the corners, you can see purple, kind of a dark purple tinting happening. Maybe if I turn it up this way, you might be able to see up in these corners, there's some dark purple residual dye. What's funny about this is you're not going to notice a huge staining happening right now, but as soon as I spray this down with that OxiClean Laundry, you're going to see it pull away from the sides of the pan, and it's actually pretty interesting. So I have this pan here. I have this one, which doesn't look too bad. It's actually just kind of tinted with a turquoise tint, but that can be deceiving. You really have to double check this because it may not look heavily tinted to you at this point, but trust me, you put some bare yarn in there with hot water and you're gonna see right away what was left over from the previous dye session. So make sure your pans are clean. So I'm gonna use this one, and then this next one is a little bit more noticeable. You can see the pink residue inside the pan. Yeah, definitely want to take care of that. And then we have this last one, which isn't too bad, but I do know that it's there because I can see in this bottom corner. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it there. There's some blue kind of down in this bottom corner. So we want to take care of that. So what I'm going to do first, before I rinse anything out, I don't want to get anything wet yet. I'm going to spray down the edges and the base of the pans, and I'm going to let that sit to pull that dye away from the stainless steel pans. And then I'm going to go over it with a wet Scotch-Brite scouring sponge. Make sure it's nice and good and wet. Don't wring it out. You want it to be kind of sopping wet to really pick up any of that dye that's being pulled out of the pan. And then I'm going to rinse them all clean. Now, This is going to cause dye to come away from the pan. You're going to notice that the water becomes tinged with color. This is not an opportunity to save that water for Lucky Strikes because you've used OxiClean. It's, you know, kind of contaminated with like this stuff. It's not, I mean, that's not nice stuff to save for Lucky Strike type colorways. And also it is not enough to really be a worry in terms of waste or anything like that. It is insignificant, and this is, you're cleaning right now. And that kind of residual color is normal when you're cleaning it off of the pans in this way that we're doing it. You don't need to worry about saving that. You save the stuff that's fresh on the pans, that's a large quantity, that's really worth saving. But this kind of stuff that's gonna pull away from the pan because it's staining the pan, you don't wanna save it, especially if you're using something like OxiClean or isopropyl alcohol. It's not worth it, and trust me, it's okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna start spraying these down. I'm gonna let them sit, and then we'll come back and check them out after we've sprayed them down. I've just run out of this, but never fear, I have a stockpile of this stuff. If you can catch it at Target on like special, you can get it for less than $2.50. I've donned my apron, I have my gloves, I have a bucket with some hot water in here, and my little sponge. Now this water doesn't have to be hot. It just happened to be hot because my hose was, it was the first time I ran my hose today, and when the hose sits out in the sun, it gives me nice hot. Really though, it doesn't matter. This stuff is gonna do the work for you. This water just happens to be hot. So I wanna get this fully wet. I'm gonna drop it in here, leave it in there, let it really soak in a lot of that water, and I want that to be sopping wet when I go to clean my pans. So let's take a look at those pans and see if the dye has been stripped from sides of the pan. So we're looking at this pan here, and you can see the like dye that's being stripped away from the side of the pan. See that yellow that's dripping down? If I take my finger, I can smear it away really easily, whereas before it takes much more effort to get that to come off. So you can see it right here. All of that had not, you know, had you not cleaned it away, it would have leached into your yarn, creating a problem. So I feel really good about getting that taken care of. Now I am going to wipe it away with my sponge and clean it up. We have a bunch of pans to do, so this is just the first pan. Okay, so I've scrubbed them all out. They're all ready to be rinsed off and stacked to dry, and that's it. And it was so easy. Much less work is involved in cleaning in this way than it would be if I just used water and perhaps dish soap and my scrubber. This makes life so much easier and really helps ensure that you're not gonna have your yarn stained by pesky leftover dye stains. So let's go ahead and rinse these off and see how nice and shiny clean they look. Okay, so there we have it. Here is our brand new, fresh and clean pan with no residual dye stains, ready to be used. And it was so easy. I highly recommend this. So if you do have pesky dye stains on your dyeing pans, get some OxiClean. It's inexpensive. You can get it at Target when it's on sale, and you can stock up. Not sponsored by any means, but I just know this stuff works. And it kind of leaves like a really fresh, clean laundry scent, so I guess that's an added bonus. There you go. Don't worry about pesky dye stains on your dye pans ever again.